there's a process that starts from the very beginning. And I talked a little bit about why gratitude is so much more powerful and applicable than the knock on the door and the finding a compliment or commonality. And commonality, like true commonality, is a great way to start the conversation. But when you seek out a reason to find it and you don't really find anything, so you kind of half-heartedly make one up, like, oh, I see you're into rose bushes, I'm also into rose, like, it's so fake and forced that it I believe it does us more of a disservice than a service, because if you do that to me, I stop trusting you kind of immediately. Versus if you're thinking about on the way to the call a reason to be grateful for that person and you come out with it, like, I don't know, it's going to be 95 here in Phoenix today. And, there's no humidity. So it's like 80 everywhere else, but it's still hot. If you're sitting in the sun, it's hot. And I used this one often when I was in Vegas, which is, man, I have buddies who are working outside today in the heat. And because I have a maintenance to perform at your house, I'm going to be inside most of the time I hear. And let me just start with telling you, Hallam, I really appreciate that, man. It could be a lot worse for me. So, and if you can find something personal about them, even better. But that's just a great place to start with appreciation, is a reason that you appreciate being at their house specifically, right? And even a little bit lower level version of that, but that's always applicable. It's not a great one, but it's still better than nothing. There are hundreds of plumbing companies that you could use in the Scottsdale, Phoenix area. And the fact that you're using us, not only us, but I get to be the tech that shows up at your house this morning, I just think is really cool. And I just want to let you know that I appreciate that. That's a big deal for me. So thank you for that. So finding a reason somewhat personal to be thankful for that person. That's where you start. You move down the list. You do the rest of your upfront contract. You should weave some credibility in there, both for yourself if you're a younger tech and for the company. This is how long we've been around. This is if you have a bigger organization, this is how many clients we serve per year. This is how many clients we've served over the time we've been around. We have, 1,800 Google reviews with an average rating of 4.8 stars, like this kind of thing. This is what your neighbors have to say about us, yada, yada. And then you move into what you're called there to do. And no matter what you're going to a home for, hopefully you're doing some kind of maintenance / inspection. If you're going to the house for an HVAC part malfunction, plumbing part malfunction, electrical, whatever, there should always be an entire system inspection with every single call you do. Now, how do you move into that? I talked about it up front. So as part of my opening statement or upfront contract, I talked about the fact that, hey, just so you know, I'm going to look at the house as a whole, the entire plumbing system from start where the water comes into the home to end, which is where the water exits the sewer line. And I'm going to look at everything in between. So you throw that in there and then you stamp a time commitment on it. How long am I going to be here? Why do you stamp a time commitment on it? Well, if you don't give them some kind of time stamp and you know that this is going to take you about 50 to 55 minutes on average, and they're thinking it's going to be 25 to 35 minutes and they have to leave, you're in trouble, right? You don't even have time to do your full process, much less present anything. So if you can say that up front as part of your upfront contract, usually it takes between this long and this long. If it's going to be a lot shorter or a lot longer, I'll come and let you know as soon as I realize it. And you get that time commitment. If you don't, again, you don't have time to present now. So you're in trouble. And if they tell you right then, look, I only have 30 minutes and I got to be out of here. Well, does it make sense to move forward? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Right. It doesn't make sense to move forward, right? Are we there just trying to do a maintenance as fast as humanly possible? and brush over everything so we don't find any issues, or are we there to uncover any issues if they exist, present some things that we think this family would really enjoy about upgrading their system, and then have time to close that? That's what we're trying to do. So we got to make sure we have time to do that. If we don't, we just reschedule. No big deal, right? What you don't want to do is, okay, I'll jam this all down into half the time it normally takes and have zero time to present my findings to you. And I'll just shoot you an email or whatever. You shot yourself in the foot. There's no point in even doing it. So you wasted time, you wasted the call, you wasted the money that went into booking that call, you burned your conversion rate, you're burning your ticket average. So just put that call on hold. Hey, this doesn't make sense. The last thing I'd want to do is rush through this, not take the time that I need to take to make sure I uncover everything and look at every piece of your system. So when would be a good day for me to come back and have time to do that? Quick and easy. So you got your time commitment out of the way. Now you do what you're there for. Do what you're there for, and then you move into the whole system inspection. And then you present your options, however you present your options. And then at some point, if you're a professional, you're always going to ask that person to buy. If you had anything to present at all, you're going to ask them to purchase it. Yes? And as Tom Hopkins would say, you're going to ask them to own, because buying is the pain, owning is the pleasure. So why even bring this up? So you rephrase this, and the only way you talk about it is owning. You don't say purchase, you don't say buy. However you ask people to become an owner of the product, you ask that question. And now you've moved through a really, once you nail all these pieces down, you've moved through the call as well as you possibly can outside of the technical part, to make sure that you're in the best possible situation you could be in to close. So once you're through all that and you ask the person to buy, they say no. So what happens the first time they say no? Cisco, thumbs up or thumbs down. Do we then overcome the objection? He said thumbs down for those who can't see. Thumbs down on overcoming the objection the first time they ask, or the first time they say no. How does that make sense? So I'll tell this watch story again because my plumbers want to hear it so bad here. It's been so long since they heard it. So my wife's little brother worked with us in Lancaster. He was a part runner for us for a while. Now he's a pretty high performing plumber, but I was like third year of management, and I brought him out from Las Vegas to just get him off his mom's couch and work for us, and like give him a path, for his future, like give him something to do. And he was running parts, and he didn't have a vehicle yet because he was just brand new to everything. So I had to wait for him to get off work before I could go home for the evening because he had to ride with me. Well, my wife bought me this watch. It stopped working, so I just threw it in a dresser drawer because I just don't really like jewelry that much anyway. So she brings it out one day and she says, the warranty on this thing's getting ready to expire. So you need to get this thing back to the watch store at the mall. I don't even know what store it was where she bought it, one of the jewelry stores, and have them fix it before the warranty expires. So I'm like, all right, cool. Because who doesn't love going to the mall? So I wait for Matthew to get off, and Matthew and I drive to the mall. Now, the entrance to this mall, the easiest one to get to, because I don't know where this store is, I just drive to the mall, and the first entrance I see, we park right there, and we go walking in. And we walk in, and sliding doors open, and we're not 10 steps into that store before a young lady comes running up to us, right? And what does the lady say? Can I help you guys find something? Now, what should our answer be? Because when I opened those doors, or when those doors slid open and Matthew and I looked around, we realized really quickly that we were in the women's shoe department. And do they typically have watches in the women's shoe department? They do not typically have watches, men's watches in the women's shoe department. So it was pretty safe to say we had no idea where we were. And since I don't really go to the mall, I also had no idea where I was going. So did I accept this young lady's help that she was so freely offering? Nope. I stuck the palm of my hand up at the same time as Matthew, like twin Power Rangers. And I said, no, thank you. We're just looking. And she went walking away. She just said, all right, let me know if you, and she's just like, she disappears off into the distance. And some kind of feeling of pride swept over me where I was like, yeah, you ain't going to sell me, you know, like I'd been training sales for years at that point, and a successful selling tech for years before that. And some 19-and-a-half-year-old scared me so badly that she was going to sell me that I shooed her away, despite the fact that I actually needed her help right then and there. Did I not? Do I want to burn the calories it's going to take to trot around the mall having no idea where I'm going, but I need to find this watch, this jewelry store? So she absolutely could have helped us, but for some strange reason, I didn't let her. And what would that reason be? Well, if you read, I'd love to show the book, Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, the FBI hostage negotiator, who's coming back on the show tomorrow, actually, on Waste No Day. Yeah. You won't hear it for a few weeks, but he's coming back on tomorrow. He says that in all hostage negotiation situations, and then they found out later through their sales training process, in most selling situations, a human being in one of these situations is storing up a no in the center of their belly. And it's becoming like a balloon that's getting blown up and blown up and blown up, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger throughout this process. And there are a lot of sales trainers out there who push and push and push that all you're trying to do is get little yeses along the way, so you get the big yes at the end. You're conditioning yeses. And I think there may have been a time when that was accurate, maybe in like the 80s, 90s, even early 2000s. But are clients more savvy to salespeople these days? They are. A lot of us have been through a lot of poor sales presentations, and we're losing our patience for it, right? We don't really want to be tricked necessarily. But in that moment, imagine if, we'll call her Susie, because she reminds me of a Susie. If Susie had let me get my no out, let us stick our hands up and feel all powerful, and like she ain't gonna sell us. And then we put them down, and she says, hey, guys, I appreciate you don't want to be sold anything. I'm not here to sell you anything. You don't look like you're shopping for women's shoes. But if you are, I'll help you find the size 11 that you're probably going to wear, right? Whatever it is, just let me show you where you're going, and I'll save you a few steps. What would we have said then? Yeah, show me where the watch department is. Thank you so much for not letting me ruin my own day by trotting around the mall for no reason. So if that's what happened just in that mall situation, how much more likely are our clients to tell us no the first time we ask out of a sheer reaction of I'm just looking? Because which one is more anxiety producing, walking into the mall and someone yelling at you from 12 feet away, or sitting at the kitchen table with a salesperson you met 45 minutes ago, hour and a half ago? Right. The second one is more anxiety producing. So Chris Voss would say that all throughout the call, you're getting them to answer yes questions with a no, just to get those little no's out. And he found over the years of much higher tension situations of like, if I don't do my job here, forget about a little commission and my conversion rate, somebody's kid in Argentina is going to die. if I don't do my job well. And he found that even in those situations with hostage takers, if he could ask questions in a way that they said no, 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 all throughout the presentation, then at the end, when he asked the big question, he was much more likely to get them to sign on for whatever it was. So much so that it became a staple of their training through the Black Swan Group. So whether you ask, instead of saying, is my truck parked in the right spot? Am I okay to throw my shoe covers on or my floor protectors on and come on in? He would say, and I think he told us on the show to rephrase that to, is there any issue with where my truck is parked? No, you're good. Is there any problem with me throwing my floor protectors on and coming in? No, you're fine. Come on in. In fact, as we all know is coming, you don't need those. Do we need those? Yes, we need those. Oh, wait, give me that. No, not this time. Okay. Yeah, we need those for sure. So in the closing moment, and the reason Cisco so accurately stated that the first time they say no, we're not moving into objection overcoming mode, right? Is because, especially if we haven't spent the whole presentation getting little no's out of the way, even if we have, allow them the freedom to release the pressure of that no that they've been bottling up and wanting to give you the whole time, right? So let them have that. So then what we train from there is, hey, I appreciate that. In some way, agree with them, compliment their decision. Yeah, I get it, totally. I'm going to pack up and get out of your hair. Before I do, this is the one I like to do. Now, I didn't have a tablet until like my last month in a truck. I always had the invoice or paperwork or whatever. But I would just get my pen and say, I just have a few more notes to fill out, right? And then completely change the subject. Let's talk about something else. And we actually role play this exact thing like crazy here in Phoenix, which is when we change the subject. So if Cisco there is the sales tech and Chewy to his left, our right, is his client, well, Cisco knows things about Chewy. They hang out. So Cisco has to use something he knows about Chewy to start a new conversation. But with the client, you've already done your warm-up. So you're just going to harken back to something you talked about earlier. Now, the thing you want to talk about is something that they were very proud of or excited about or whatever. When they talked about it, they lit up a little bit. And if you've gotten nothing like that out of your client up to the point where you're presenting, you don't have a whole lot to worry about because this is going to be over quickly anyway, because you've established almost no relationship with this client. So if they say, hey, my daughter's piano lessons are the coolest thing on earth right now. Anyway, you told me your daughter plays piano. How long has she been doing that? You're typing on your iPad or you're writing on your tablet or whatever you do from there. And then just let them go. And if they take 30 seconds and stop talking, cool. If they take 15 minutes and then stop talking, cool. But as soon as they stop talking, in some form or fashion, you're going to ask again. And Jack there in the Phoenix room on Cisco's other side does it a great way that he added something to the way I train it, which is he goes, I got to ask. I love that. I love that transition statement. I just got to ask before I get out of here. Or, I got to ask. Again, I got this stuff out in the truck. Like I can have it done and your water or your power or your air conditioning back on in, by 1:30. You want me to just go ahead and throw it in for you? And you just raise the eyebrows and you give it a little nod and you stare right at them. And more times than I can count, technicians that I've trained over the years have said that someone that didn't just say no the first time, but was an absolute no, they knew this client wasn't buying. Like there's no way. Just looked right at him and started bouncing their head with him and said, you know what? Just go ahead and throw it in. Yeah. Well, what'd you say about the monthly again? How do I find out if I qualify for that? Can we do that? Yeah, let's go ahead and fill out the paperwork. In some way, shape, or form, the hook sets and they just bam. And the biggest, most important part of that is like they oftentimes some people really need to get a no out. They have stored it up since they talked to a CSR 4 days ago. They've been waiting to tell you no, and you want to give them the opportunity. Now, here's something what David Sandler would always say of Sandler training: leave your kid in the car. This is probably the most important place to leave your kid, in the car. So your fragile, weak, emotional state that is really going to come out. I don't care who you are. This is the time. If it's there, this is the time it's going to come out. You ask the first time, they say no, thank you. And now you want to have a meltdown. You want to get out of there. Anxiety takes over, or you want to ask again, or fight or flight kicks in and you just want to start going back and forth with them. Why not? What's stopping you? Oh, that's not a problem. Zero of it. This is not the place or time. So no overcoming objections right here. You don't even have an objection yet. They just said no, thank you. Let it go, no matter what they say. Sure, sounds good. Cool. I'll get out of your hair. Just got a couple minutes of paperwork to do here, and get back to it. And then the second time, thinking if we go into some objections here or not. Well, we certainly have time. All right, we'll do it. And then the second time you ask, I got to ask. Again, like I said, we have this stuff at the warehouse. I can have a part run and drop it off. He can probably even stay and give me a hand. I'll have your system back up and running by 2:30. You want me to just go ahead and throw it in for you? Right? Again, I got to ask before I get out of here. Like I said, we can have the install team out Friday morning. They'll be out of here by 4 o'clock. All done. You want me to just go ahead and get you on the schedule? Right? Whatever way you sell and your equipment gets put in. So that time, the second time, they say, no, thank you. You're going to find out why. How are you going to do it? Now, most of the time on the second time you ask, they're actually going to give you the objection. Boom, right up front. They're just going to say no. And if I took a vote on this real quick, if we did a poll, I guarantee 80-90% of people would say the client always gives you the reason at this point. So they're going to say, no, we're the type of people that, like to pray on it. We like to take a weekend. We always talk to our aunt, who's our financial guru, who helps us make any decision when it comes to money. Whatever the case may be, the objection tends to come out right there. Boom. They just drop the objection with the no. If not, how do you get the objection out? Easiest way is just to ask, soften it up first if you need to. If you need to soften statements before you ask questions like this, then you should already have that scripted. So if you can't just say, hey, what's stopping you? Fine. Not everybody can. But you better have scripted, written, and role played how you ask it. And it'll sound something like, I completely understand. Only thing is, in this case, I've seen many clients in this exact same situation many, many times. And oftentimes they struggle to make the decision. But once they do, and once the equipment's put in, they realize it was a perfect fit, and they would never take the money back to have the equipment uninstalled. If you don't mind me asking, what's stopping you from getting it put in today? And then you'll get your objection. So what are the objections? What are the rebuttals? Who we got on here? Brian Wick, what you got for us, buddy? What's the biggest thing stopping you today, Brian? This mic doesn't work. Intelligent design. Can you guys unmute, or is that not doable?
Hello.
What's happening?
Nothing. What are you doing?
So what's the biggest thing stopping you from moving forward today, guys?
It's a lot of money.
We just role played the heck out of this one. Another one for Jack, especially since he's not in the room right now. Which Jack came up with a really good rebuttal that we role played like crazy on Friday to this exact thing. I 100% agree. 100% agree. It really is so much money. When I first got into the field, this type of job was half this much. It really is insane anymore. Let me ask you a quick question though. Who answered that?
Okay.
What's your name?
I'm Sam.
Sam? Good to meet you, Sam. Sam, let me ask you a quick question. Are you more of a value shopper, like you want the most bang for your buck, or are you more of a lowest possible price, I don't care about anything else shop in your normal life?
In my normal life, typically, it's the cheapest thing. So I break about everything. So
okay, so the value and the quality, all that stuff doesn't matter to you.
Not really.
That's perfect. In this case, this particular package, this particular tech, and this company are perfect for this exact situation. For everything we offer, everything you're going to get done here today, you cannot find someone to do it cheaper. So you wanting the absolute lowest price for what you're going to get is absolutely what you're going to get today. Can I go ahead and get you taken care of, Sam?
Yeah.
You don't have to answer. It's more hypothetical. But kudos to Jack, who just sat back down and folded his arms as he should, be in a defensive posture for walking out during the middle of the meeting. But we just used your value. I can't remember what you called it. Rebuttal from Friday. So, and it closed Sam from Tucson. So good job. But no matter what and this is brand new, right? Jack just came up with this. He's one of our plumbers here in Phoenix. And I have rebuttals for this. I don't know. I probably have like 8 different rebuttals written in my notepad for this and 20 more in my head that can pop out at any time. And I've role played this, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of times probably over the last 20 years. And the rebuttals change depending on the circumstance. But I really enjoy when someone just out and thinks up a brand new rebuttal. So here's what I get all the time. When I do any kind of objection conversation on Waste No Day, when I do any kind of objection conversation in trainings like this, is I'll inevitably get 20 or 30 text messages on various platforms saying, can you send me the script of all your rebuttals to objections? And I'm like, for the most part, that means I'm going to have to type them all up because most of them really are in here. Phoenix team, raise your hand if you've seen me dozens and dozens, maybe hundreds of times in the last 8 months, write rebuttals to objections on that board.
Hundreds.
Just raise your hand anyway. Raise your hand if you have ever seen me take a notepad, phone, or tablet to transcribe those rebuttals from. It's never happened. They're always just coming out of my head onto that whiteboard because I don't write them down. I've written them down over and over and memorized them, but I don't have like my objection rebuttal sheet that I go to. I've just done it so many times that I'll come out with the rebuttal immediately. When we did the 7 Deadly Objections episode on Waste No Day, I wasn't reading rebuttals. So my rebuttals were coming out based on how Nate was objecting. And that's what it has to be. So Jack coming up with a brand new rebuttal that I had never heard, that I had never tried. We role played it. We realized that it was breaking walls down and it was making people rethink their strategy while we were doing it. That's the new rebuttal for it's too much money. Just like that. It took over 20 years of rebuttals. Is it perfect for every situation? Not necessarily, but it's a strong, solid, realistic rebuttal that will turn a lot of people fairly instantly. So you don't have to have the perfect written, time-tested rebuttal. You just have to have something that keeps the conversation going. Because your job overcoming an objection, it's not always to close. You're not always going to just simply close right then and there. Your job overcoming an objection is to make sure that the stop sign between the sale and you gets removed and the conversation just keeps flowing. Objections, the hardest part about objections is we as salespeople see an objection as a client saying, I'm done with you. I reject you. I reject your offer. I hate you. Don't ever speak to me again. So we walk away. Actually, we limp away. We crawl away oftentimes. We thought this one was going to go. In reality, the way we should see an objection is the client saying, I really like your product. I really like you as a person. No, not that time. I wasn't giving a thumbs up. I really like your company. I believe in your team and your mission. I believe that the solution to my challenges outweighs the money that I'll spend on it. But here is just one little issue that's standing between me and making this purchase from you. Can you go ahead and help me out with this? So imagine every time you get an objection, that's how you hear it. That's the way it's phrased in your mind. Would it be different would you be a different objection overcomer if that's what you heard from your client every time they gave you an objection? Yeah, you'd be an animal overcoming objections, right? If they phrased it that way. Now, they're not trained in this. So they don't know they're supposed to phrase it that way to get help. But 8 out of 10 times they give you an objection, they're looking for help. We're soft and weak in our early stages of sales. So we don't think that's the case. And we just kind of run from what could be confrontation. But the top producers in all of our industries lean into that anxiety. And they reach in and say, I'm going to help this person with this. I understand what you're saying. You're not saying you reject me personally. You're saying that you think that this little thing that you just mentioned is stopping you from being able to be an owner of this amazing product. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reach in to this situation. I'm going to pull that little thing out and move it out of the way. I'm going to help you through it. And when I do, Sam, did you notice what I ended with in that role play? What did I end with? Sorry, just be ready to unmute.
I know you said that we're the perfect company for this.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the end you're speaking of?
Nope. I ended with asking you if I can go ahead and get this taken care of for you today. I closed. So anytime you overcome an objection, look, they're going to still say no most of the time, even after you overcome the first objection. But do you know they're going to say no? You don't. And the problem, especially with early, younger technicians, and I mean younger to the sales process, and I don't care if you've been doing this for 25 years, if you've had zero training or you've had great training and you decided not to take any of it seriously, guess what? You're a rookie. You're brand new. If you don't believe that, bring your 25-year veteran self to Phoenix for a Tuesday morning or a Friday morning and role play with the room right there that's full of, I mean, the vast majority of the guys sitting right there are in their 20s and have had good training for the last 8 months and will eat most salespeople alive in that role play room. Most people who have been doing this for years and years and years, who either haven't had good training or have had training and done nothing with it, you're a rookie. You're in your first year. So if that's the case for you, you've got to get to know you've got to get to know some scripted rebuttals and be able to use them. But if that's the case for you, you don't know that a client's going to say no. You think so. And we all fall into this trap where, look, no, I knew when I pulled up. I'm a pretty good judge of people. I'm a pretty good judge of character. No, I know people enough to know as soon as I pull up whether they're going to buy or not. I would ask for a show of hands on who thinks that or who has thought that in the past and been, maybe that's the better one. If you've been sure of that in the past and been wrong, raise your hand. 100%. So if you see the majority of the people on this call have been through that and been wrong about it, it should tell you right there to always close. Always ask people to become an owner of this product. You never know when you're going to get shocked by that. But also, if that was an objection and not the objection, do we want to know? It would help to know. So if there are 3 objections, we're going to have to ask 3 times. I know, terrifying, right? Is what it is, man. We at some point we went from toddlers who would ask 10,000 times until we got the answer we were looking for, to grown-ups who are terrified to ask somebody for what we want. But we got to get over that for the client's sake, if not for your own sake, because it always holds true that the client who gave you the most fight to say yes to the product, in our case, it's typically water treatment or a tankless. The client who gave the most pushback, but eventually broke down and did it, will write the longest 5-star Google review for the company. They needed that help getting through all their, and what is it? The vast majority of the issue with that keeps them from doing it, it's just fear, right? They know they want purified water at their kitchen sink. Everybody does. Everybody does. Or whatever it is that your product does. They've had bad experiences with salespeople, right? They've invested in things like this and been left holding the bag, and somebody's taken advantage of them. It's why they give us this pushback, like they don't trust us. They've just had crappy experiences in the past. If you know for a fact they're not going to have that experience with you personally and your product and your company, then you should be willing to push a little bit harder than most people. You've got to help them through this. So you've asked the second time. You've gotten the objection. You have some little scripted saying that you're going to say that everyone on this call is smart enough to make up their own versions of, just to keep the conversation rolling. And maybe they say no again. And you say, hey, I totally get it. What's stopping you? What's in the way? And what's in the way is a great question, because even for yourself, it'll take that feeling of they hate me, they reject me, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough. And it just turns it into a conversation of like, okay, there's one more thing between me and you and where we're trying to get to, which is you to have cleaner air in the home or whatever it is. What is that thing that's in the way? And now they'll give you one more version. Well, I can't afford to make this. Sorry, I can't make this big financial decision without my wife here, which is always great, especially when in the beginning of the call you asked if there was anyone else who would want to be part of this conversation, and they said something sternly like, no, I make all the decisions when it comes to our finances and our plumbing system and our HVAC system. Who's had that before? Where they made you so confident there was nobody else in the picture, and then at the end they said, oh yeah, this is a bigger decision than I thought. My wife would have to be part of this, right? So again, fortunately / unfortunately, you have a big obstacle to overcome here. First thing we're going to try to do is get spouse on the phone, right? Second thing we're going to try to do is see if spouse is going to be home soon. Because if spouse is going to be home soon, we'll wait, right? If it's a sizable enough ticket and you think this family could really benefit from it, we'll take the time and wait for it, won't we? Why wouldn't we? Now, we can't get a hold of her whatsoever, and we're talking about something like purified water or disinfected air, and it's something the family could really use. Like you got kids who are drinking this regular tap water, or mama happens to be the one going to Costco to get the massive, heavy case of water that she's got to swing underneath the buggy like she's some power lifter deadlifting, except she weighs 115 pounds. Like, you're saving a family from something, right? So we can absolutely hit this with a rebuttal and say something like, let me ask you a question. Let's say you went ahead and made this decision and we move forward with this product, and your wife gets home, and maybe while I'm wrapping up, or maybe halfway through the job, or what time she's going to be home, so you know how to explain this part. But Janet gets home and she comes walking in, and you say, honey, you were at work and I knew I couldn't get a hold of you, so I just took it upon myself to, for $115 a month, don't have to make the first payment until the middle of June, we're going to have purified water at our kitchen sink. We're going to have disinfected air throughout the home. Much lower chance that any of the kids are going to get sick again from here on out, because the air going through the house is going to be sterilized. Let me ask you a question, Bob. If you said that to your wife when she walked in the door, would she be angry with you, or would she be proud of you? And if Bob says she'd be proud of me, then you just stick your hand out and you say, well, let's go ahead and make Janet proud. Hey, the good news is I'll be halfway done when she gets home. If you need help explaining it, I got your back. Right? Or if you're long gone when she gets home, if she doesn't understand or isn't super proud of you, give me a call. I'll talk to you guys on speakerphone. Who's willing to do that for a couple $1,000 sale? It's what you're going to do anyway, right? If she answers that phone right now, hopefully FaceTime, you're going to sit there and explain it anyway. So why not do it on the back end? So is there an objection that we can't, I don't want to say overcome, but at least keep the conversation flowing, right? Not really. Owner tenants are a mother, like that. Put that one aside. Can you sell them from time to time? Absolutely, they can be sold. People do it all the time. Is that the rule? Absolutely not. The for sale sign is hammered out in the front lawn, and there's a little sign under it, hanging from it, that says sold. That's going to be an uphill battle. You're not going to sell most of those, especially when it comes to the elective things like surge protection, IAQ, water treatment. And then the ones where they fail financing and they call two neighbors and an aunt trying to get the money, and they can't come up with the funds. You can't win that one. But in most regular situations that we see on a day-to-day basis, whatever the objection is, we can at least keep the conversation going enough to ask for it one more time. Now, here's an issue between there and here. If your presentation is such that your client has no interest whatsoever in owning your product, you've got no business overcoming objections. And I get this phone call from time to time. Well, okay, what did she say? Okay, what did you say? What did she say? What did you say? And I go, yeah, bro, she doesn't want it. You're wasting your time to go back in there and overcome an objection. Your presentation was so soft and so vanilla and so uninteresting. And the way you presented the product was so boring that she wants no part of what you're selling. So don't go in there and badger her with rebuttals to what are, for her, excuses. She's just trying to get you to leave. Now, either go back in there and sell, or get out of her hair. Go lick your wounds and figure out what you need to say to yourself to make you want to own this product,